Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 4, Episode 8. It is called Miniature, so full spoilers for the episode. As always, this one stars Robert Duvall, a very young Robert Duvall.
Yep, a very Bo Radley? I never know how to say it.
Yeah, I recognized him, right? You could see it in his face, but like I've never seen him look this young. Like I'm so used to him, basically from The Godfather onwards. Like that's the era. He's got more hair here than I'm used to. I don't like it. It's unsettling.
You didn't see? He's in To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm pretty sure you've seen that.
Oh, I have seen that. Yeah. Okay. It's been
he's
a while.
At the very end. He plays Boo Radley.
Okay. It's been a while, so I don't remember him in that, but I'm sure I'd recognize him if I saw it again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he plays this kind of introverted character who everyone at work doesn't very much like. He has got a slightly over-controlling mother that he lives with. He's got a sister who's worried about him, and he keeps running off to the museum to stare at this particular display over and over again. So much, at the start of the episode when it first starts doing it, gets him fired because he's late back at work. But he sees this dollhouse, and inside the dollhouse, he at least thinks, we can debate as if to whether or not he really is or not, but he thinks he's seeing the little doll inside the woman. He sees her be alive, and he sees other characters like the maid and like this other guy comes in. He sees them living and thinks they're real. And at first he doesn't realize that he thinks they're real. He even asks the guard, like, how did they do that? Yeah.
How does this work?
What's the special effect here to make this look real? And the guard just doesn't know what he's talking about. He's like, what are you talking about? They don't move. There should be a wood. And there's like a sign next to it saying, made from the oak of the house that this was, that this is based on. And I'm like, did you not see the sign, dude? Like, it's right there. It's like plain as day. There's a big sign. So yeah, premise of the episode is that he keeps doing this, and his family keep getting more worried about him, and it escalates to the point where he even ends up going to a hospital, and the therapist looks at him, and
Commodore Decker from Star Trek.
I did not realize that.
I recognize the voice.
Of course you did. But yeah, so that is the premise of Miniature. Did you enjoy the episode, Tara?
I really liked the episode, actually. I think this is the most realistic characters, and I don't know if it's just characters or the actors are all really good in this, but like maybe I think because it is an hour long, these characters are much more layered than expected, and they seem really very real. And like even Duvall feels like, I mean, obviously he's an excellent actor, and I think this like whole series has showcased like the people who made it on to become successful actors. You're like, okay, I can see that from this. But also like
except Shatner.
Well, he does feel like an actor from that time, much like Commodore Decker in this episode feels like the only person who's like from other Twilight Zone episodes. But everyone else feels very real. And I think Duvall is doing a really good job of playing somebody who we would say now is autistic or like on a spectrum somewhere. But, back then I don't think they had that term yet. Or if they did, like it just wasn't common enough for them to even mention it in this episode,
Yeah, they just
I actually did really like it. Yeah,
they just don't understand them, and if they did come up with a term, they'd probably use something that sounds quite harsh by today's standards to describe them.
Yeah, something pretty inappropriate.
Yeah, because it's this kind of weird thing where it felt early on in the episode, I felt like it was maybe a little one note, and okay, I get the type of character it's doing, and I get kind of like, everyone's concerned that he's with his mother still, and that he's not really seeing women, and all these usual things. And I was like, okay, I get what he's doing, and I get that he's like recognizes this own little world. For me, it got more interesting in the back half when it started. For first of all, like the idea that it even goes to the point where he's seeing a therapist and they're discussing what he's seeing is very un-Twilight Zone in a weird way, because normally in Twilight Zone you don't have time for that. You just get it's presented to them, we get the shock weird ending, and then we interpret it ourselves as to whether the character was just seeing something or whatever. But no, in this we actually get a doctor saying to him, no, you were just hallucinating, and this is maybe why you were seeing this. And I think when it started getting into all that stuff, I got a little bit more interested because it started to actually analyze some of it a little bit more, and it made me think about like, okay, yeah, the reasons why he's seeing this, if it is just a hallucination, In the ending, it gives you a little bit of a sparkle just to maybe say, oh, maybe it's not just him. Maybe there is something here. It gives you enough to sort of maybe question, because when the family go to see the doctor, after because he gets unemployed and then he's going just there every day to look at this dollhouse, and the guards like sort of like recognizing him and being friendly, but is clearly starting to think, oh, he's been a bit weird because he just keeps coming and staring at that one thing for 6 hours a day, whatever it is. And then he eventually, he thinks the woman inside is in trouble. And, and I'm analysing it in my head as I'm watching this. I'm thinking, oh, this is like, not only is this a girl who's perfect to him and not like all the women that he's maybe scared to talk to in real life, but it's also someone who he can see himself as being protective of. And it's when he thinks she's in trouble that the little doll man's going to attack her, and he's taking her up to the bedroom, which is kind of a dark implication as well for the time period. And he smashes the window at the dollhouse is behind, and that's what gets him. The guard comes over and effectively, I don't know if they officially arrest him per se, but obviously that's what lands him in the hospital. He
definitely gets kicked out. Yeah.
And we cut ahead. I think we see the first meeting with the therapist, then we cut ahead to when he's getting let out. And when he's explaining to the family, what really made this interesting to me is when the doctor's talking about why he did this and why his mind like created this like little fake world, and he starts talking about, well, he felt this immense pressure to be like everyone else because everyone keeps pressuring them into it and saying you have to be normal like everyone else, you have to act like everyone else, you have to just get a normal girlfriend and get married and have kids and just be like everyone else. And that pressure, when that's not who he really is, like this pressure to be someone that he's not. And it almost made me think obviously I think the doll kind of contradicts this, but this could easily, if you took that out of it, this could easily be a story about someone this could be someone who's gay. This could be
because I definitely had that thought too. Like even in his performance where he's just like, when he's on the date and stuff, where he's just like, he clearly is just not into women, at least not into this woman. But in his mind, it's more of she's not a pure person. Like she's this new type of woman who is a bit more aggressive sexually and or at least more upfront about it. And, that he's just not, he likes someone who's more pure, like a doll, who's like someone. Yeah, no, that's a good. He can even create.
This is a good thing to bring up because, his sister, who we meet, and it was interesting because the first person we meet when he goes home is his mother, and she's, kind of this. Kind of stereotypical. She's not being like too obsessive, but then there's all these little moments later on where
there's a lot of passive aggressiveness, going on.
Passive aggressiveness, there's taking his shoes off and putting him to bed, even though he's a grown ass man, and things like that. And
she's babying him.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, that's not like a really accurate portrayal of we need someone sensible who's in his life to sort of really get a good read on him, and then that's when the sister comes out because she seems like a normal human being who's who's concerned about him, wants to help him, but even her to an extent is still like, oh, I've got this friend who I'm going to set you up with. She's a nice girl. This is what you need to do this.
It's just a different form of pressure, like the therapist was saying.
And then alternatively, the brother-in-law who's there is he's kind of comic relief, but he's also there to represent how he's he's trying his best to be nice to his brother-in-law, but he's also saying all these kind of passively insensitive things as he's saying,
you're not normal.
Yeah, you're not normal. I had to do a lot of work, given where you've just been to get you a job at my place of work, and all these things. Oh, shout out, just in case I don't remember to mention it earlier, his boss at the start of the episode is an actor who's popped up a lot on Twilight Zone. From The Real Martian, Please Stand Up. It was the TV repairman in another episode. He was one of those faces. But yeah, so he goes on this date with this woman, and they sit down up a park bench or whatever it is. And I say park, it's like a little set they've got. It's maybe the corner of a park, and she, he's been pleasant enough. He's been nice, but he's quiet because he's always quiet. And she starts.
His mind is wandering for sure.
And she's leaning in, and she's like, don't you like me? It's like, yeah, sure, you're swell, or something to that effect. It's like, don't you want to kiss me? I'm gonna guess. And he clearly isn't making a move, but she just keeps inching in closer and closer, and eventually, puts one on him. And he kind of reacts so shocked that he kind of pushes her away, and she falls off the bench onto the ground. And he's very apologetic. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, and he tries to help her up. And she's so mad about this that she slaps him. and then says he needs a doctor, which, to be fair, he probably does. But the reaction she gives him is so like I mean, aggressive's right too, but like she was being aggressive before. I feel like this reaction is like, well, I'm not going to admit I did anything wrong. This is all on you. It's not on me to recognize that you were uncomfortable, that I was pushing anything on you. This is all your fault. So she slaps him like he just made an inappropriate move or something, and he didn't. Like, it was the opposite. He was reeling in horror from her, and she was offended by that. But that's a really good scene to bring up, because it's like this is like a microcosm of how like society and the people around him are forcing him into something that he's not wanting.
Even outside of his family, his boss and this girl he goes on a date with, and everything. I think it kind of translates to a lot of what's happening, like traditional gender norms and just everything, that all the pressure of society, and like even now of like I think we brought it up in another thing, but like this, our generation and younger seems to have, we seem to be like throwing our arms in the air, like it's too much, there's too much for us to deal with, and it's just so much easier to just not give in to whatever societal norms are, and say, like, can we just live our own life, be happy, and figure things out? Or in his case, I think he also sees the dollhouse as like, this is from another time where things were simpler, and also sort of like wishes he was a part of that time,
Which is an interesting point, because I think like he would be incorrect in a sense. So it seems simpler to him looking at it in this, because it's this doll form. But in reality, there's probably, I mean, the further you go back in time, I feel like the more pressure there is to conform to one exact like type of person,
But it is easy for us to be like, well, our generation, our parents' generation had it easier, So maybe things would have been, maybe we would have had like our own house and like a family or something if we grew up in a different time that you guys did. But like, it's harder now. Things are more expensive.
Yeah, I read this a little bit differently, actually. I don't think I got like a simpler time, and that's what's appealing to him about it. To me, this was the equivalent of an introvert today just becoming obsessed with like a TV show, and that's their life, and that's all they talk about. It's more about the fantasy, and about this is just a fantasy world that he can put himself in, and like he's basically doing fan fiction. That's what he's doing when he's standing watching it.
I picked up on that also, actually. I was thinking, because he is just watching what's happening and obsessing over this one woman who doesn't react to him. It's like he's just watching her do her thing every day and living her life, and it is a bit of a what is that, like a parasocial thing, where he he thinks he knows her and that he could be with her and be happy with her, but like, I mean, she's not real in this case, but it is also kind of like being in love with a fictional character or something from a television series.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me, and that's not a dig at people who write fan fiction. Plenty of healthy people write fan fiction as a hobby.
I read fan fiction too. It's good stuff.
You've never told me that.
Well, I mean, it's not a need to know thing.
Can't believe you're reading all those weirdos stories. I'm kidding. That was a joke.
Good. They're not all sex, okay?
I just wanted to make a joke. I just wanted to crack a joke. Okay, that was all that was. A lot of them are kinky though. A lot of them are about, what if these two characters boinked? That's what half of fan fiction is. Maybe more than half.
Yeah. I mean, fan fiction kind of started with well, I guess that's slash fiction really with Kirk and Spock. So.
Yeah, but that's kind of what he's doing. He's kind of pitching himself into this story, and as if he's got this relationship with this person. But that's what I really liked about the scene where the family's talking to the doctor, because I almost like was reading the scene, and I was looking at the other characters as they were hearing this, and it was kind of interesting to note that I don't think any of them kind of really accepted in that scene that, oh, I'm part
Definitely
of that.
Not.
This is partly our fault, or all of our fault for driving him. And it really struck me that as soon as they got him home, immediately as soon as they sit him down and they give him some like cocoa and something, like, oh, by the way, I convinced Henrietta to give you another chance. And he's like, oh yeah, I got you another job at my place again. That job's still open. And immediately it's like, You're just forcing them into all the same things that you were forcing them into before.
Yeah, they just are like, okay, well, the doctor fixed you, right? And now you're good, so now we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's not like it's no longer our fault, so
yeah.
It's...
Honestly, I think this episode is really fascinating when it's less about the main character and more about how everyone else is treating him and how they just do not get it and do not accept any responsibility or understanding.
That's what I mean. Like, I think that's why I feel like these people are so realistic. Like you said, there's kind of stereotype, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like I know these people. And there's like one moment with like the daughter and the mother and how she's talking about how, I can't remember exactly what the dialogue is, but it's basically like the mother's trying to confirm with the daughter that she's not at fault. And the daughter kind of gives a sideways glance like, I'm not going to say it, but like, yeah, we all believe that.
It's something like, I'm not controlling, am I, Janie?
Something like that,
and she's like, sure. Sure, Mom.
Yeah, it's just little things like that where I'm just like, these people feel very real.
And it's that thing, obviously, like, yes, as a person, he should be able to sustain himself and have a job and possibly find happiness, right? These are all good things to try and encourage someone to do. But if you read this as someone who has mental health issues, who clearly needs help, clearly needs some understanding from people around them, and isn't getting it, and instead is just getting this pressure to be quote-unquote normal and just conform to the way everyone else is, you can see why this makes him worse and why he's going further down this rabbit hole. And obviously the ending, adds this little Twilight Zone little spin to be like, oh, maybe there's some truth to like the fantasy. And I mean, you can kind of read the ending that like they've pressured him so much that he's just been lost to the fantasy now, and he's just in there. That's sort of the darker like way to read the ending.
Yeah.
But of course, there's kind of a happy thing on it because obviously they can't find him in the room, which is a really fun sequence where they realize like, wait, he's not in there, and they bust out of the room and like, where is he? And they realize he must have went out the window, and it's like, did he go back to the museum to look at the dollhouse? Like, well, it's closed. And it's not until the therapist comes over, he's like, nah, I bet he snuck in. And and we see him actually, because I think it's a sarcophagus.
You got there.
To me a minute. He sneaks out of that and he goes over. And it's when they come in with the guard at the end where they're looking around and the rest of them wander off, and it's the guard who was the first one who kind of thought he was a bit crazy for thinking he was seeing something, but he was nice to him. I mean, he sees him in there with the woman, he's one of the dolls now, and they're moving, they're like, and he doesn't tell anyone, Rod tells us in the narration, he never tells anyone because he knows what it will sound like and what they'll think of him, but it does give it this little happy tinge of like, because he smiles a little bit like, huh, he was kind of right, and now he's with the person he wanted to be with. There's kind of like a happiness to it.
I understand why the ending's here. I think I would like it more if the guard didn't see that he moved, but just that there was a second doll there instead of only
I could
one.
See that, yeah.
And him going, I wonder, what was there always two? And like starting to second guess that. But we do see like Duvall clearly like take this whatever prehistoric VR machine he's got on his face.
I thought the same thing. It looked like a VR headset.
and like move around, and then we see the guard's reaction of smiling like, oh, he is in there and they are moving. What a nice story, instead of being like, what, am I going crazy now? Has this like passed on to me?
I think that's what I think by the end of the episode, I liked that it kind of challenged me to read it and sort of like consider what the happy or sadness of the ending was, and who the story was really about, because it's arguably, it's about Robert Duvall's character, but like I say, I think it's far more interesting to like make it about the rest of the characters and how they're treating them and how they're refusing to accept it, because even the therapist doesn't like, all he's tried to do is convince them that the thing was a hallucination, and he does say some of the right things to the family, but it's not like later on he ever like says, oh, what did you say it to him? Like, what was your influence here? What provoked him into this?
I mean, according to Duvall, he said like, well, they were going to threaten me with shock therapy unless I said that it was all hallucination.
That's right. Yeah, that was one of his little bits, because and that's the thing, when he comes out after that meeting with the family, he comes into the scene. And he's like a brainwashed cult member. The way he walks in, he smells. Oh, I'm just fine, doctor. I'm just fine.
He's saying all the right things, doing all the right things. Yeah. Yep. I would love to meet them again. I would love to go work for you and your boss. And yep. Everything's fine.
Yep. Everything's just dandy. And then of course, the first chance he gets, he locks his door, And I love that. Like, there's a running thing with the mother as well. It happens earlier on when I can't remember the first time it happens, but it happens again when he locks his door. When the brother-in-law is like, "Oh, the door's locked," and she's like, "No, that can't be. He would never lock his door, so that's impossible."
It's a little Buster Bluth and Lucille Bluth, huh?
Yeah. Oh, maybe there's some inspiration there. I don't know.
Maybe.
The one earlier was when the brother-in-law, when they think, oh, he's been spending time somewhere, the brother-in-law says, oh, maybe he's found a girl, and the mother goes, oh, that's not possible, because he would tell me. He would definitely tell me, so therefore it's impossible that he's found someone. I don't feel like he would tell you right away. I feel like there's a lot of baggage that comes with telling you anything.
Yeah.
So,
I also thought, like, I don't know, Robert Duvall was giving me very Herbert West vibes throughout this performance.
Oh, okay.
And maybe just coincidence, but I thought that I don't know, like they did the mannerisms and everything. I just kept picking up, like, God, he kind of looks like him even in this. But anyway, so that's a Reanimator reference. But
yeah,
I kept getting that.
No, I'm sure I've brought this movie up before in reference to another episode, but I feel like the perfect double bill with this is watch this and then watch the Ryan Gosling movie. Girl. What's that?
Lars and the Real Girl.
There you go. That's the one. But no, because I think that's the opposite of this, where it's the same sort of thing where this central character is going through something and he thinks this doll is his new girlfriend. And it's actually a very sweet film because all the characters around him, like, kind of do their best. They try really hard to kind of, like, make him feel comfortable so that he'll come out of it in his own time when he kind of, like, is ready to accept what, you know, the trauma that he's went through. And it's this to me was like an example of, like, this is how a bunch of characters in the 60s would react to it, and it doesn't go well as you would expect. And it's not like they've got the lynch, forks out or anything like that. The pitchforks, the lynch fork. You know what I meant.
Yeah.
You lynch with pitchforks is where that was coming from. But it's not like they've got the pitchforks out and they're ready to, I mean, his co-workers at the start maybe kind of are, because they're like, oh, get this weirdo out of here, we don't want him around. He's too weird and quiet and doesn't talk about normal things with us. But just in how they, in their, just, I guess ignorance is the best word for it. Their kind of casual ignorance and what that does to just further the problem. Yeah. Whereas if they were more understanding, maybe he wouldn't get trapped in the fantasy that he's created for himself at the end.
Right. Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good episode.
Yeah, it may actually be a really good episode and maybe one of the best of the season so far.
Totally. I agree with that.
Yeah. When we do our top 5 at the end of the season, we'll, I think that stands a reasonable chance. And
unless the rest are, like, really great.
I'm not expecting that, to be fair. But I think what's interesting about this one is that I wonder if it's actually better now because we're viewing it through a very modern lens, but the way we're analysing these characters. And it's not to say that I don't think any of it was intended. I think, Rod and his writing team were, very progressive and ahead of their time. But I wonder if this is one that's actually better now because we're kind of looking at it maybe a little differently than what an audience would have done in the 60s.
Sure. I think so.
Because I don't know if the episode makes it explicit to the audience that the people around them are doing something wrong necessarily, by the end. I think
I don't know. I mean, we sort of approached this episode with the whole idea of, like, we have words for this now, like he's on the spectrum, and, people, an audience back then would be like, well, he's just not normal. He's just something left or right of normal, and we don't understand it, and therefore it's bad.
Yeah, I would love to know, like, the intentions in writing this episode, and, like, was it kind of poking at the things that we're talking about now because they were they were really trying to examine it and think about it and talk it, like, offer their own opinions on mental health and how it should be dealt with by loved ones and things like that, or is this a case of they wrote a really solid episode that actually has aged better than it originally aired because it's they were
just ahead of the game.
Yeah, I would be curious. I mean, obviously, the people who wrote it aren't alive anymore. But I would, if there was anything out there about this episode, I'd be curious. So
yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. So that's Miniature. Next time, We got Burgess Meredith coming back once again. For it's not even been that long since the last time, is it? He was in one recently.
What? He's been in 3 so far, right? He was obviously the famous one, Time Enough at Last. He was in the I want to say one of the finales.
Yeah, it was
and then
a
he was
future
like a comedy
one,
one where he was like a strong man or something. So
it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But hey, anyway, so it's called Printer's Devil, and he is a newspaper reporter. The description on IMDb is as follows: a man sells his soul to the devil to save his failing newspaper and gets more than he bargained for. So we got maybe a monkey's paw style episode.
Love it.
Yeah. They showed a clip at the end of this episode, and it was just him talking to this couple and about how because they think he's crazy that he's going to like run this small town newspaper, like when he's meant to be this big newspaper man. But I'm sure some hijinks will ensue. I mean, at the very least, we've got a great leading actor. So
yep.
So yeah, I look forward to that next time. But let us know what you thought of this episode of Miniature in the comments. You can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. You can support the content, of course, by hitting the super thanks button below the video. Or, of course, you can go over to Patreon, can't you, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you guys enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mildfuzztv. And if you donate those $3 per month, you will get bonus content with us and others, and super fun. And there are other tiers, and you'll get more stuff. So thank you very much.
Very good. So there you go. That is the show. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.